of applying for scholarships. Not only for this round of applying for scholarships, but also as fodder for what you may be statements and other scholarship applications that you'll be writing in the future. So I'm hoping that you can also grab a pen and paper or open up a Word document or notes document as we go along, because I do want this to be interactive. So be prepared for that. Anything else that I wanted to say introduction wise? Mr. Kennedy mentioned I'm an English professor at COS. I am also the Puente project coordinator for our campus, and I've served on several of our scholarship committees. So a lot of the information I'm presenting today comes from my perspective of reading not only lots and lots of essays on the regular, but also lots of scholarship essays. So I wanted to start out with the most common mistakes that I see in scholarship essays. Sorry, I'm closing some of these extra tabs here from Zoom so I can see what I'm presenting. So the most common mistakes that we often see are students not answering the prompt of the scholarship essay. And while those prompts can be very vague because we want to gather as much compelling information about the student as we can, sometimes students don't actually address the main ideas within the prompt. So we're going to look at the sample prompt for the COS scholarship essay today. We often see that there's no clear structure in scholarship essays. So we want to talk about ways to structure your essay where each of your points connects to each other. Another common mistake is not doing any editing. I know so many of us write on mobile devices, or we're writing quickly, we're under time constraints. But I do want to talk a little bit today about taking at least one extra step to do editing to make sure your wording is as clear as possible. Next, another common mistake is not clearly stating your goals. So that's going to be part of what we talk about today together. And then lastly, not being specific. And one of the ways that I want to encourage you to start your essays is with a specific moment or a specific story. So let's go ahead and get started with that process. So I want you to make a quick list. I'm going to set a timer for just a minute and 30 seconds. And I want you to answer this question in list form, whatever comes to your mind quickly. What are some of the most impactful moments in your life? So take a moment to kind of think about that as I set our timer here. If you had to categorize your life really quickly, what are some of the most impactful moments? Okay, so I'm going to give you 1 minute, 30 seconds starting now. And these can be anything. They don't have to be super major.
Progress.
What were some of those turning points for you? Joining AMEND, coming to college, meeting key mentors or leaders, big moments in your family life, in your personal life. Sometimes those impactful moments can also be negative, right? But they change our perspective. take one more moment to wrap up. If you didn't think of anything yet, that's okay. I would encourage you to write down the question anyway. All right. Does anyone want to share in the chat anything that came up for you?
Can we share audibly?
Yes, you can share vocally too. Thank you.
Mine, from a couple of mine, going to Ethiopia, playing on basketball teams, being charged, being put on AP my freshman year, living on my own in college, and joining and leading organizations in college were mine, off the top of my head.
Those sound like some really impactful moments. I think you've lived more life than I have. That's really great. Jelani in the chat said, getting my first phone, which is a really interesting one, especially considering what I'm going to ask you to do next. Nehemiah says, being a part of the BSU, first college, absolutely. Getting your driver's license.
Well,
being a part of the GMAT RCC, yes.
Can I add something, Jamie?
Absolutely.
Yeah, some of mine would be the birth of my first child, returning to school at an older age, meeting Dr. Vines and joining the men and becoming a peer mentor on campus, being the first of my mother's children to get a degree.
All of those are wonderful examples.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Miles says, going to Africa, losing my auntie, getting my first check. Yes. Devin, graduating from CSUSB, meeting my mentors at A2MEND. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing those. So I'm going to challenge you now to narrow that list down and think about, how are any of these experiences connected to your journey in college or the goals that you've made for yourself? These can be personal goals, your educational goals, or your career goals. So I'm going to give you another minute, maybe on your list, circle, or if you're working electronically, to kind of tab down and leave some space under one or two of your impactful moments. And can you make a connection to how that moment has impacted any choices you've made in your journey? Let's take another minute. Connection can take the form of inspiration, a significant choice you made, anything that impacted part of your personal journey. Go ahead and wrap up your thoughts. And again, if you didn't complete your thoughts, write down that question for yourself so you can come back to it. To give you a brief example of what this might look like, I remember as early as elementary school struggling in some subjects, but I felt really confident in reading and writing. My mom wanted me to be a doctor. There was no other choice, right? So she didn't really want to hear that I was having trouble in science. I had a teacher though, who one essay that I felt really, really proud of told me as she handed back my paper, "You are a strong writer." And I can tell you that moment changed the rest of my life. I was a little 8-year-old kid, but hearing that from another adult mentor validated for me that I was strong in at least one of these subjects, and that became the direction of my career, really. Let me check the chat here, see if there's anything I missed. Yes, we had 2 other contributions for impactful moments in your life that are really great. Thank you for sharing those. So I'm going to keep going and we can come back to discussion, but I want to get to some activities towards the end. So in the interest of time. So now that we have that list of our personal moments, as well as starting to think about how those impactful moments can connect to those educational goals, let's take a look at a sample prompt that comes from College of the Sequoias. I believe this prompt was used for the past 2 years for our scholarship essays. It's a pretty general prompt. And I think it relates to many of the kinds of scholarship essays you will write. So this prompt reads, describe your educational goals, community and school involvement, and the unique experiences that would help a committee in the selection process. Discuss your major and/or interests and how it relates to your career goals. Explain how receiving a scholarship will help you achieve these goals. Why is the investment in your education a good one? That's a big prompt, right? Upon first reading it, I might say, okay, so you want me to tell you about my whole entire life? That's a lot of work. But one of the key things that I like to do when looking at any kind of prompt, I do this for essay assignments, regular homework, whatever I'm working on, is trying to identify and either highlighting, underlining, or bolding the key themes. So I want to ask you, you could pop this in the chat or shout it out. What are the key terms that we should pay attention to in this prompt? One word or a couple of words. Educational goals. Yes, thank you, Amir.
So also, why should we invest? Well, that ties into educational goals, though.
Yeah, it ties into educational goals, but important to point out because it is a separate discussion, right? Activities and what you're involved in, absolutely. Good. So everyone is really hitting on that, and what I did here was bold what stood out to me. So educational goals, community and school involvement, your major, career goals, and investment. Those are the things that I think are the key terms in this prompt. And what we do by identifying those key themes is making a checklist of things that we need to cover, okay? Oh, and then I made myself a bullet point list here that I forgot about. One thing I also like to do is to reword it into smaller, kind of more bite-sized questions too, that I can start to answer in an essay draft. So if I were to do that from this longer kind of vague prompt, I would say, okay, I need to identify my goals and how I've been involved in my campus life. How do my experiences set me apart from others? Right, that's hitting on that unique idea. Why did you choose your major? Why did you choose that career? And that question here, why is the investment in your education a good one? I rephrase that in my brain as, why should we give you money? And how are you going to use it, right? Nobody wants to make a bad investment, right? We want to make sure that we're funding people who are dedicated to their education. So why should we give you that money instead of a different student? So the next part I want to cover is, since we've identified that list of what we need to do, how can we organize that to create a clear structure? And here's a sample structure that I have for you today. And this is mirroring like a 4-paragraph, just under 1,000-word kind of scholarship essay response. So those 4 paragraphs will cover your experience, and your goals, right? And talking about goals in a larger sense, your major and the related actions that you have taken to learn about your major, to volunteer, to be involved in campus life, your career goals, and then how you're going to use that scholarship. So I want to break down these 4 ideas and think about each of these ideas as a clear paragraph, at least in a draft, which you could expand on or summarize and be more concise if you have a shorter scholarship application. Okay, so let's start with your experience and goals. So at the beginning of your scholarship essay, one of the things that I think is the most effective and will help you stand out is starting with a specific scene or a specific moment to draw the reader in. Think about the beginning of a movie. Think about the beginning of a book, right? Usually, to get the reader most involved, you're dropping them right in the middle of the action. So in that moment, from our examples, we could say someone had mentioned their children, right, their children being born, being very impactful. What was that moment when you first held your child in your arms, right? That's usually a very emotional moment for most parents. There's very specific thoughts, very specific emotions that you're feeling. And when you're putting the reader right in your shoes, you're triggering that sense of empathy, that sense of connection to you. There's lots and lots of scholarship essays and personal statements that start like, my name is Jamie Moore. I went to this school, right? It's like, okay, great. But when you're putting me in that moment, when I first held my child, I knew my life was going to be different. I'm invested, right? That clearly identifies a unique experience that you have that's directing us towards specific decisions, ideas, choices that you're making about your future. And then, as I was having you think about in our first activity, clearly state your goals and how it's related to that specific moment that triggered something new for you. So how did this experience create a goal for you? Going back to our example, when I first held my child in my arms, I was feeling a sense of responsibility. I realized my life was going to be different forever. And I knew I had to return to college to create a clear career plan so that I can create a productive life to provide for my child, whatever. That's a very bad example. I'm a better writer, I promise. Does that make sense so far? Feel free to pop in with any questions or in the chat as well.
No, it absolutely makes sense.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, so let's keep going. And we're gonna look at some examples of this as well. So part 2 is where you wanna identify your major and the actions that you've taken. So based on the goals, these larger goals that you've made for yourself, to be the first in your family to graduate college, to pursue a passion for reading and literature like I did, why did you choose this major? You want to be very clear and use very direct language about that. How is it connected to your key experience and your goals, right? My goal was always to be a strong student. School was where I felt at home. So getting that validation from a mentor in school and then choosing to pursue literature was key to finding a sense of agency in my position as a student, especially when I entered college, right? So how is your choice of the major that you have connected or reflected by the experiences that you've had? If you have an undecided major, it's okay to talk about that, right? It's okay to explain that part of your journey in college is figuring out what really resonates for you, right? Many students start college not knowing what to major in because we've had educational experiences that haven't validated us. We've had classrooms and we've had course material that didn't really reflect anything we were interested in. And that's also the beauty of the beginning of your college journey, is that you're able to figure that out, right? To take electives. And so instead of, if you have an undecided major, you can talk about in this section what classes you've enjoyed, right? As long as you stay in that space of specificity. Here are some classes I've enjoyed, and I look forward to taking other classes in this area so that I can get closer and closer to figuring out what career area is right for me. The second part that you want to address in this section is what kind of activities, volunteer work, or community work are you involved in that gets you closer to that goal? So that can include specific classes that you've taken. So when I wrote my scholarship essay, I for sure included, I was taking creative writing, I was taking, African-American literature, Chicano literature, trying to get a diverse array and a diverse understanding of world literature and how it impacts different cultures, right? What clubs are you involved in, right? Absolutely talk about A2MEND, right? Talk about the connections and the network that's important to creating a foundation of folks that help encourage you towards your career and your educational goals. And also talk about any off-campus activities that are related to that. If you have certain hobbies or volunteer work, as I mentioned, that connects to what you want to do, describe that. If you haven't been involved in activities, talk about what you would like to be involved in. What kind of experiences are you looking for, right? Because again, that demonstrates this active pursuit and this active interest in your educational journey. Part 4, excuse me, is where you want to identify, part 3, getting ahead of myself, is where you want to identify your career goals. So based on your major, what do you imagine? And it doesn't have to be one thing, right? This can be a description of a few different careers that you have in mind, but why are you pursuing that career? And how does that career choice highlight your talents, skills, and passions? So those talents and skills and passions also connect back to that experience, right, that you have, that you describe at the beginning. So when I was writing, I was talking about being a teacher, and I knew from the beginning that I wanted to teach at community college because, and I started at Santa Rosa Junior College up in the North Bay of California. And those were the most interesting, diverse classrooms that I had. There were students of different ages, of different ethnic backgrounds, of different abilities. And that was where the most interesting conversations happened, right? Whereas when I transferred to Sonoma State, let's just say, I was someone with the most diverse cultural experience, in the room. And I walked through the world with a lot of relative privilege, right? So those classrooms were just not it. I was lucky to have really wonderful teachers, but the social experience was pretty lame. So I knew going to community college was in my favor and was something I could talk about and identified for me. That choice to go there connected directly to my career choice, right? Kind of extra credit here, I put at the bottom, depending on whether you're applying for a scholarship through your college or whether you're applying to a scholarship through a private group or a nonprofit, it always serves you to look at that institution's mission or their vision statement or their goals and consider how your career goal connects to that vision statement of the organization that you're applying for a scholarship from. At our college, at College of the Sequoias, one of our stated goals in our vision statement is that we are preparing scholars and workers that are giving back to our community. So it definitely serves students to talk about how working in a certain career, especially in the Central Valley of California, is going to help build that community and create a network of professionals, right? If you're applying for a nonprofit, right, they usually have an About Us section and a clear mission statement. And think about, does what I'm doing connect to anything that guides the work that they're doing? And that will help your application stand out. So the last part, why me? Why should I get the money? And this part can be a little trickier to talk about, but it's really important, right? As I mentioned at the beginning, you want to be clear about how you are the investment. State very clearly how the scholarship is essential to reaching your goals. What specifically are you applying for scholarship money for? And another way to think of that question is, how do you plan to use this money? You can be very direct. This is going to go towards my tuition, towards my school supplies. Supplies could include, you know, because we're in virtual mode, your laptop and electronics, books, right? My brother just started community college. His books, because he's a math and science major, are $600 this semester, right? It's a lot of money. And it also can support just living. That is also okay. To talk about bills and making sure that you have a roof over your head and food to eat. There's ways that you can say that are a little, you know, less direct. But it's important, I think, to state so that they can connect that story, those aspirations to a specific need. And as you come to a close in this personal statement, the scholarship statement, it's important to reassert your dedication to your educational and career goals, and specifically how you plan to get there, right? So for example, I just did a scholarship application for my graduate program, and I applied for money for tuition, right? Because I have a job and I go to school. So I told them, you know, I need this money for tuition, and here's why I'm going to school. And my plan is to graduate at this time, and this is going to help me in my career in these ways, right? So you're kind of bringing all of that together, kind of like a mini conclusion at the end of your paper. Okay. Any questions before I talk about editing, about those 4 sections?
Yeah, I guess I kind of have a question. I was going to save it for the end, but I think it relates to one of those 4. I guess I'm curious, from your perspective as someone who's read a lot of scholarship essays, do you ever come across essays that come off as like over boasting or anything? I know that people say that scholarship essays are supposed to be where you let it all out and you showcase like what you've done. But I'm just curious from a reader's perspective, do you kind of block that out and just accept everything they tell you and you kind of encourage the boasting? I don't know. That's something I struggle with. It's kind of like, you don't want to be you don't want to come off as too self-centered or like, you know, like just, you know.
That's an excellent question that I don't think any student has asked me before. So I really appreciate that question. And to be honest, I don't think that I've read an essay where I was like, oh, this student is just tooting their own horn, like, because again, if you stay in that specificity, right? If you're telling me a story about who you are and how your educational goals are a part of that personal development, I think you can avoid that. Where I think it can maybe turn into trouble is when you're not staying, I forgot how to say the word specific. There it is, specific. Because what can happen is essays can become just a list of accomplishments. Right. I won this scholarship. I did this. I did that. And I wouldn't necessarily read those essays as boasting, but I would read them as boring. Right? Because I'm not really learning about the person. I'm reading their CV, right? And for most scholarship applications, usually outside of your college, you're submitting a resume or a CV along with that, right? So I already get to see that. I can check off whatever I need to check off. But the written space, the narrative space is where I get to learn about you. So I think as long as you're staying in that story and in that narrative of how this is actually connected to who you are as a person, then you don't necessarily have to worry about that too much.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Amir, I think I see a hand up.
Yes, that was me. So I was going to ask something, I guess, really similar along the lines of what you had just answered. Maybe coming from a place of humility when submitting an essay, because I imagine, yeah, if it does come off too much as arrogant, the person can always, or whatever organization or person that you are writing to can always say, well, since you are expressing yourself, if you are coming off as you are better than everyone else, then why are you asking for this contribution? Why are we uh, helping you? So it sounds like maybe coming from a place of, yes, I can do this and I will do this, but I need a bit of help to get there.
Yeah. And I think confidence is really, really important all throughout that essay. And finding that balance of confidence and humility, as you mentioned, is a really good way to think about it. And that's why addressing how you're using that scholarship is really important, because I think that's where you find some of that balance of that humility, right? I'm using this in a very specific way to help further my education, to fund the supplies that I need to do this, right? Like, I'm asking for help and here is why. When students don't directly address that, then you can leave a committee unsure of why you're applying, right? And it can feel a little more boastful in that way.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there any other questions that I may have missed? Because I can only see like mini versions of the chat and of the.
I got a question.
Yeah.
I never get the scholarships. Ever. They don't never. I never. So I wonder, and I think I'm a halfway decent writer. So when I write them, I tell them, like, what I mean, I tell them everything. I tell them I've been locked up before, spent time in prison, came up in the streets, all that type of stuff. Is that too much information, or is that something that because personally, I do personally believe that at least one or two of the places I've been on, they have discriminated because of that. But, what I mean? You pour your heart out to these people, and it's like, man, they don't even respect the struggle.
Yeah.
You see in the other people that are qualifying, it's like they're a little more privileged, and so that's my question. Is that too much? Should I just water it down a little bit?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. I think it's really, really important to talk about biases existing. They absolutely 100% exist. And there's different ways that different folks are going to be biased. I mean, in innumerable ways, right? I think one thing to really think about, as you're mentioning, that thought of maybe overwhelming them with information, that's why I kind of wanted you to frame it as like one specific moment, right? We want to leave them with a clear, memorable impression. When you're recounting everything that's happened to you, it can start to feel like a list. And not to say all of those things, all of those impactful moments have shaped you. They absolutely have. But I think it comes down to two things. And part of this is for us and part of this is for them, right? The part for them is leaving that impact. But the part for us is navigating the performance of our own trauma for other people. That's something that I've had to think about a lot. And what I mean by that is, in these applications, we're often asked, in this kind of question, what are those unique experiences? Like, what are all the bad things that have happened to you? And it can take a lot of emotional and mental energy to write about that over and over and over again. It can take a lot out of us, especially when we're not seeing any kind of benefit. Part of the reason I've structured my writing in this way is to stay very connected to the idea of story as something that motivates people, and also to preserve my own energy and what I share with committees of people that I don't know, right? So I would ask you to consider, and for you, this might look like drafting that first paragraph, focusing on a couple different moments and soliciting some feedback from folks. What feels the most impactful? What part of my story really draws you in? What part of my story feels the most connected to the experiences and the choices that I've made with my educational journey? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Part of, you know,
Okay.
because it can start getting discouraging at times, making one say, forget y'all
Absolutely.
and y'all little money. You know what I mean? I've been the one they put us head to head with somebody else. And I mean, they got us both telling our stories, and then they, ooh, dang, and then they choose one person. All right, thank you.
That was on my mind as I was applying for scholarships when I first transferred from the community college to the four-year college, thinking like I had to work several jobs. I have 6 younger siblings. I don't have time to be involved in all these clubs. I don't have time to do all of this stuff that someone who is more privileged has time, money, and resources to do, right? But I know what I want to do and I know where I want to get. So making that clear connection between this experience is motivating me to pursue these kinds of experiences, to better who I am, to get me closer to my career goals, is what I had to focus on when I was first writing these. So let's continue on, and we'll definitely come back to questions at the end here. But I want to talk about editing and look at a couple of examples. As I mentioned at the beginning, in those common mistakes, you do want to make sure you take time to edit. And this can look like a couple of different things. First thing I would recommend is getting a peer or a trusted friend or mentor to read through your essay and focusing mostly on clarity, right? Are my sentences clear? Are my sentences complete? Usually they are not super like grammar heavy kinds of essays, but you just want to make sure that your points are coming across clear. When you are editing, I really encourage you to either print and read your essay if you can, or read your essay aloud. And that's because especially when we're on devices, on our phones or on our computers, our brain will fix the words for us when we're just reading in our head, because we know what we mean, but sometimes it doesn't always come out that way. So it can feel kind of silly to do that, to read it aloud to yourself, but you'll be surprised how many times you can catch when you type the wrong word or a sentence doesn't really make sense. I put here, keep your essay at 900 words because that's what we have for College of the Sequoias, but be sure to check in with whatever application you're filling out, what the word limit or character count is. If you see character count, that means literally like letter by letter, but usually they're a word limit. So be sure you meet that word limit and do not exceed it, because most systems will cut off your essay if it's longer than that. If it's much shorter than that, you might want to think, how can I expand on the ideas? You don't have to meet the word count exactly, but you want to get as close as you can and show that you're really trying to take every effort that you can to explain how and why this scholarship is important to you. And then thinking about our 4-section structure, make sure each section has a clear takeaway about you as a scholar. So I wanted to give you an example from one of my students, and this is not a perfect example by any means, but it puts us in a moment. So I want to read this for you. So she started her essay. I was born 4 months early, meaning I was a premature baby weighing 1 pound and 3 ounces, and I was the exact size of my father's hand. Not only was I a miracle baby, but my mother was very sick, causing me to be taken out of the womb 4 months early. If it weren't for Dr. Boone, my mother and I wouldn't be here today. During those 3 months I spent in the hospital after birth, missing my mom's birthday, my first Christmas, New Year's, and my grandparents' anniversary, Dr. Boone would still check up on me no matter which hospital I was stationed in. This experience encouraged me to pursue medicine as a career. I hope to make my dreams a reality and to serve others, just like I was blessed to be saved by doctors who were there to help. To be able to educate those who haven't had the opportunity to be taught, to help those who don't know where they are headed, to not only be a doctor, but to be a mentor to those around me and to those who need me. So I want to provide you here with both some praise and some critique of this example. What I like about this example is we have a clear connection between an experience that this person went through and how it's connected to their goals, which she expands on later in her paper, right? The experience of being premature, hearing those stories of what early life was like for her, recognizing that that doctor really saved her life and her mother's life, directly connects to her studying medicine and also wanting to be a mentor, right? So we're immersed in story, we're immersed in a clear identity that is important to this writer. Some critiques I might have is that we have some repetition pretty early on in this paper. And the last part of it gets really big really quickly, right? So we're quickly taken out of this experience, whereas in this section here between Dr. Boone would still check up on me, and this experience encouraged me to pursue medicine, and then I hope to make my dreams a reality. We haven't really gone into what her dreams are yet. So this is a moment where she could expand a little bit and be more specific, stay in the specificity that we start with. So what I want to ask you to do is to look at another example together. Oops, I might have to stop share for a second. I'm going to drop this link in the chat for you. This should open up a Google Doc. This is another sample student essay. And I would like for you to either highlight or comment, and you can highlight something and then right click and it will let you comment. Comment on one area that you think could be improved or more detail added. And let me know if that doesn't work. I'm going to share my screen again here, but you can minimize me so that you can see that. Good, I can see people are jumping in. So you can highlight something that you think is great, and then you'll see that the add comment or suggest edits comes up on the side. So I'm going to set a timer for just 3 minutes here. And then we can share some of those thoughts together. Just over 1 minute left. Some of y'all getting into the nitty gritty here. We got some editors in the room. I appreciate that.
I'm not a good writer at all, so I hope I haven't messed up anything while trying to fix it.
There are no worries about that. And I also want to correct you. I think everybody's a good writer. If you can tell a story, you can write a story. We have a lot of internalized ideas about what good writing is.
Cool, I can work with that.
Good, good. Okay, wrap up a last comment if you're working on one, and then we'll look at these together really quickly. One of the reasons I wanted to give you the experience of being in the editor role is we can often see what other people are missing. And when we're in our own writing process, we're so much in our head, right? Just as someone mentioned, it feels like we're not as strong as writers. From this essay, and this was the first draft of it, and it got edited and then submitted. This student received 2 different scholarships from our college. So even though there's lots of edits and things that can be improved, this was a draft that won a student some money. So, but a draft that, as we can see here, folks included several edits, right? So I can see comments like this first sentence, which I totally agree is a little bit of a run-on sentence, right? This is the student trying to fit everything about themselves kind of in that first sentence. And then coming back to that specific idea, oh, these are my memories as a child. And then they get a little more specific as they move on. So that was part of the edits that she worked on, was focusing on, oh, okay, it was kind of the split in my family that led me to recognize how that was affecting me emotionally. And one of my favorite lines of this essay is where and why she discovered that love for reading and writing. I noticed another person highlighted, Jafar highlighted a clear and concise plan of what she wants to do, as well as backups. Absolutely. Here's my educational plan, and here's the schools I'm looking at, and here's the degree that I want to get. We've got some people who know the difference between then and then. Let's go. That's great. Smaller edits like that are super easy to miss, right? When we're typing it out. So going back, looking at it in a different form, or having someone else look at it really helps us with that. And then we had a comment on this one here, could be more specific. Yes, absolutely. This was one of my biggest comments for this writer, is that we wanted some specificity here of how that would help them.
Stuff.
Really good work, everyone.
Editing. That's funny.
Okay. So I want to send one more link your way here.
I mean, it's cool, like, to listen, but I can write. Like, I'm good.
Someone's good. I'm glad for you.
I think someone's got to mute. I think there might be.
I might got a hot mic.
Dang, somebody just snitched on themselves.
That's all good. All right, here's a second link for you to open up this rubric. And this is the last thing I want to do together. You should be able to edit this one. Oh, I gotta open it with Google Docs. So if you have Google Docs open, that should let you open it. So I want to challenge you to write out what's an important theme that you are taking away from our talk today that you should include in your scholarship essay. And also you can do this bullet point, you can just put some keywords. What makes it compelling? And in this way, we're creating a kind of rubric for us to come back to that you can use as you're writing your scholarship essays. And when we're finished here, you can hit file and make a copy for yourself. So you have a copy of this, which you can add to, adjust, edit, print on your own. So I'm gonna give you another minute and then we'll end with some final questions to wrap up our hour. Draw the reader's attention early. That's a great start. I'll add one here as well. I really like structure, organization. Were there any unexpected transitions? I really appreciate that one because definitely we want to have that through line of how that experience connects to your goals, how that connects to your career. So looking for that flow is a really good point. Honesty, absolutely. Is there anyone who can't open the doc that wants to add anything that I could type in for you?
Doesn't look like it's working in real time. I just typed one in, but I don't see it on the screen.
Oh, okay.
I said, make sure to understand the question thoroughly.
Okay, I'll be sure that I add that too. I'm going to put that theme under answering the prompt. Oops, if I can spell prompt correctly, that'd be great. It's a really good one. Content, really good. Okay, so we've come to our time, and I'm happy to stay here for a couple more minutes to answer questions. And as I said, this doc is, oops, what just happened? I'm gonna stop share for a second to figure out. Did it go blank for other people too?
Yeah, I have a thing. I have a thing at the top here that says can't sync your changes. Please copy your recent edits, then revert your changes.
What in the internet?
Did it start a new page or did it disappear?
It just disappeared.
You like my edits, Brett?
I'm
tough.
You don't play around.
No.
I'm start sending my stuff to you.
Okay, well, hopefully I can figure out what happened with that. Or if you remembered what you wrote, you can add that in again. I would encourage you, like I mentioned, to make a copy of it, and then you can fill in on your own based on this presentation. And then I'll also send this presentation to Mr. Kennedy so he can send that back out to you. And then like I mentioned at the beginning, my kind of last thing that I want to leave you with is that it's worth it to do this kind of writing right now because you can build on this essay or this type of essay for other scholarships and personal statements for your transfer applications. So that's all I have for you today. Is there any questions to wrap us up? Looks like it was restored to a previous version. Yeah, thank you. I'm not sure why it was.
I just want to say thank you for the presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your participation. I really appreciate when folks are willing to speak up and contribute.
Yes, thank you very much. This process is a lot less intimidating now.
Good, good.
I have a question.
Yeah, of course.
What type of like websites would you recommend to like apply to? Because sometimes I'm like confused about it and like it's hard to find some website to apply to. So I'm just wondering.
That's a great question. The first place I would direct you would be to the scholarship office. Those are actually your experts on places to apply, and they can help you identify scholarships based on your major. And those are the best ones to apply to. I saw a scholarship the other day for women band leaders. I never would have thought that there was a whole professional organization for women band leaders that gave scholarships. Yeah, Delaney, I agree with you. FastWeb, the problem with some of those sites like FastWeb is that it's become kind of like Google, right? If you Google something and then you have all of these results, you have a million results, and not that there aren't a million scholarships out there, but it's hard to sort through the ones that are going to be the best for you. You can send out, the blanket kind of essay scholarship statement to lots of them, but what is most effective is when you're really tailoring some of that language to specific organizations. So I would really start with the scholarship office and talk to someone there who is willing to maybe look into scholarships that connect to your major. I would also recommend searching for professional organizations based on what your major is. So for example, as an English major, there is the Association of Writers and Writing Programs. There's the Modern Language Association. There's the college, like the four colleges, we call it 4Cs, but it's another professional organization. All of those organizations are comprised of educators, administrators who fund scholarships for students coming into their career. So think about or look for professional organizations of folks already doing the career that you want to do, and see if they offer any scholarships, because those can be some of the best ones, and folks don't usually know about them, right? Students aren't usually engaged with professional organizations yet, but A2MEND is a really good place for you to talk about that and explore those together. Ask a mentor to help you look, because they might also know some of those organizations that you might not be thinking of yet. But yeah, FastWeb, I mean, those kinds of search engines can be a place to start, but I think really starting with your college office is the best place.
Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions?
Yes. Will this webinar be available to view again later?
I believe so.
Yeah,
it's being recorded.
Yeah.
And then I will also share the slides that you are able to view. So you can go back to those links too of the example one as well.
Thank you.
In fact, if you want to save it now, I'll send this to Mr. Kennedy so you can send those together, but here's the link to the slides to view if you want to go back to them at any time.
Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Back to you, sir.
All right. Thank you so much, Jamie. That was great. Actually, I got a few.
Thank you, Jamie.
Myself. And I'm going to use these slides too, because I usually every October, right, when our scholarships come out, I try to give a little presentation to the to my EOPS students and the AMEND students. So yeah, this is good stuff.
And if any of you have any other quick questions or anything, feel free to email me. That's my campus email. I might be a little slow because it's beginning of the semester and my email is crazy, but I'll do my best to get back to any questions.
All right, Jamie, I owe you lunch or something. So hopefully when things return to normal, we'll get to hang out a little bit and maybe have some coffee or some lunch or something. Any more questions, guys? Okay, I'm going to share my screen and show you actually what the scholarship questions are. Actually, let me pull up the scholarship packet first, which will have all the information on it. Let's see. And it's very similar to last year. But this year we've kind of added the pandemic component to it and the distance learning. So let's see. Okay. So here's the first page. We want all this information filled out. Last year, a lot of students turned in scholarships and didn't have this entry-level page. So this is definitely something we need. We also need your spring schedule and your transcripts attached to your application. Okay, so the second page is our rubric.
I have a question.
Yes,
Do you want official transcripts or unofficial?
unofficial is fine.
And is this from all the schools or just the school that you're currently attending?
The one that you're currently attending will be fine. Because I know,
Okay, thank you.
I know some of you guys might have, 2 or 3 colleges, but the one that you're attending is fine with me because that'll have, usually that's going to have the total attempted units, your GPA, cumulative GPA, and all that stuff we need to know. And so this is our rubric, but you also definitely want to consider the one that we just created. And you'll probably see a lot of similarities here. This one is maybe a little bit more deeper. And then, like I said, there's going to be a competition this year. We got a couple of sponsors. It's going to kick in a little extra money. Your participation during these webinars and during the AMEND Institute seminars, those are definitely going to reflect how much money that you're going to be eligible for. Okay, so if you've been coming in, chopping it up with us every other week, then you'll be compensated for that for sure. Okay, so the first prompt, this is a question that Dr. Thayer came up with. What is your amend? Obviously, amend means change. So what we want to know here is how this pandemic has impacted your education. What challenges did you face? And then what have you learned from it? How are you better because of it? I know one of our first seminars back in May, we talked about goal setting, and we got a lot of time on our hands. How are we going to use that time to better ourselves? What did you do with that time? It could be family related, it could be vocational, it could be educational, it could be any of those components. We just want to know how you use this time to improve yourself. Second question, and this question will probably be tweaked a little bit for the charter students. I realize some of you are part of charters too, so you can either discuss what you learned with the charter, or you can discuss what you learned out of these institutes and these seminars, and how are you going to apply that to your life lessons, developmental process, and your growth as an African-American male. Okay, so that's pretty much the scope, the 2 questions. Try to keep it maybe a page apiece, maybe a page and a half for each question. There's 72 of you guys, so I can't read a whole bunch of 10-page essays within a 2-week period. These are going to be due on February the 17th, so we're going to give you guys about a month to get these in. But this year we're going to have a hard deadline, okay? So after the 17th, that's it, because we're going to be evaluating, we're going to be writing checks, we're going to be getting prepared for the summit. The summit's going to be on the 4th and the 5th of March, so it's a pretty quick turnaround. It's a lot of essays to read, and hopefully, last year, some of the essays were really good, really solid. Some of you guys might need a little work, and so that's why I thought it was a great idea to bring Jamie in today to talk to you guys. And so here are the suggestions: Word format, a Word document. If you want to convert it to PDF, that's fine. You want to send it to AMEND organization or AMEND mentees, that would be me and Monique. We're probably going to be kind of filtering them. Obviously, the board members are going to have a final say on the amounts. Make sure you fill out the application form completely. And again, we need those transcripts. We got to know that you're in school, okay? Some of the brothers that have transferred already, if you're at a 4-year, you're probably going to get a little extra money this year. Some of you guys that have been coming in you're at a community college, but say you've been coming into all the workshops, the webinars, and the institute workshops, then you guys will get extra money. And if you write a good essay, if you're one of those top 2 chosen, then you'll get even more money. So yeah, we're going to take care of everyone, but just different at different levels, different amounts based on your participation.
And Brett, are you sending an email this week, or should we screenshot the questions?
No, I'm gonna send this packet out. I just have to tweak that second question so it applies to charter members.
Okay.
And then I'm done with it. It's on y'all. Like I said, remember your phases. Start the planning phase as soon as you get the packet. To start the planning phase, like Jamie mentioned, what was the most impactful moment? We basically started that already. How's that impactful moment drove you to where you are today and drove you to your career, your educational path and your career? Then you just start jotting down. Some people like to do outlines. That's normally how I do it. And then once you get all that together and get good structure and make your paper flow, then you can start the editing phase. So you guys can use each other. We can set up a meeting or set up another webinar if you guys want to look at each other's essay. If you want to send them all to A2MEND, then that'd be great too, because there's gonna be all kinds of red ink on your essay. But
that's funny.
But hey, at least we'll have it criticized and critiqued.
Right.
Yeah. Criticism's good. Criticism's a good thing. So
constructive criticism.
Right. I really like the on Google Docs. I mean, you could do it on Microsoft Word too, but I love the suggestion feature on Google Docs. I don't know if y'all have used that, but obviously we're very used to just like editing, and we just like delete stuff, add stuff, whatever. And then it like expanded to making comments, on Google Docs, which comments are cool because you can, put a little message on the side, or annotations or whatever. But I think if you go on Google Docs in the top right, you can switch from editing to suggestion. And then anytime you type, it will add it in like green or red, depending on what you're doing. And it shows the change you're making. I don't know. It's hard to explain. You just like check it out in Google Docs. And I really like it because you can like see the changes that are being made to your document, and you can like accept them or reject them. So like, I'm not saying send me your essays, but if you did, I would use the suggestion feature and then say like you'd see a slash through happy, and then in green you'd see like joyful if I replaced it with joyful. And then you could have the choice. You're like, I don't like that word. Actually, I reject that. I want to keep happy in there. And you press the X on the right side, and then it goes back to what you had. So I really like that feature. I've been using it the past like 2 months or so, a lot more. So.
And a lot of times it'll keep you from using the same word.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, A2MEND.
Yeah, no problem.
Another thing she mentioned that's a great idea, and one thing I do is read it out loud. You'll be surprised what you catch when you actually read your paper out loud. And it's like, all right, that don't make no sense. Then you got to go back and make a few changes. And printing your paper, that's another thing that works. Oftentimes it looks different on paper than it does on a computer screen, and you'll catch some things. Like you might have a comma instead of a period. I know when you get older, like me, it's kind of hard to tell sometimes, and the keys are right next to each other. So just little tiny things like that you see on paper that you don't always see on the computer screen. All right, any other suggestions, fellas?
Stay positive and test negative all 2021.
Yes, sir. All right, so our next webinar is going to be on February 6th. Malcolm is bringing in, oh my gosh, I forgot her name. You want to talk about it, Malcolm?
Yeah, we got a sister coming in. that's a lawyer that works with really works with like a homeless rights group called Think Dignity. Her name is Michelle Woodson, and she's going to be basically giving us a know your rights training, kind of tell us what can the police do, what they can't do when they stop us, when they detain us, how to navigate that kind of in light of the current times we live in. I mean, that's something that all of us need to know. Sometimes we get pulled over and we be sounding stupid, telling the cops what they can and can't do and really don't be knowing. And then sometimes we just allow them to violate us when they really can't do something. So she's going to kind of like break that down so we could be more informed on our rights when we encounter police officers.
I think that would be awesome, Malcolm, because a few years ago at one of our conferences, we had the former Inglewood police chief speak to that point on in one of the workshops we had at the hotel.
Yeah,
some of these brothers weren't there, so that would be real good.
Yeah, it should be cool. I've seen her presentation before. It's good. We had them do it for some like at-risk youth, and it's pretty good. It's easy to understand, and they should be here to answer questions too. Because sometimes, we'll have regular people do it, but we can't really answer questions from a legal standpoint because that's not our field of expertise. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes a police officer might know, but they might not. Even if they might be from the community, they might not necessarily let us know what time it really is.
Is this next Saturday? Sorry.
That's going to be on the 6th.
February 6th. I really appreciate you setting that up, Malcolm, and I'll be in touch. I want to put a promo for that.
Sure, no problem. Thank you too.
And like you, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
And like you were saying, Malcolm, sometimes we don't know, and the police know and they don't tell us, and sometimes they don't know.
That's true.
Okay, on February 20th, I'm going to have one of my former, well, he's always going to be my mentee, but he's at Harvard now. He's working on his master's. He's in the Harvard Divinity. And I just want to share his story with you guys. A little motivation. It's good. It's good stuff. I mean, this guy came from nowhere, and now he's at Harvard. So, and some of after hearing the story, I'm sure you guys will have a lot of questions for him. But his name is Jesus Murillo. He's from our campus. He was an A2MEND mentee. He went to I don't know if you guys saw his story or not, but he went to Fisk on a full ride to Fisk from one of our HBC the HBC tours that we have, and now he's thriving. So just to share his experience, answer any questions you may have. And then a couple weeks after that, we have the conference. Just to pick your brains a little bit, we want to feature you guys. We haven't quite figured out how to do it. They're giving us like a 30-minute time slot. One thing that Dr. Bull and I was talking about was maybe a little slideshow with your picture, your major, maybe some details about you. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about that? And how would you want to be featured during the summit?
Open to all ideas at this point. Is not something I'm very used to, so I'd love to see what it would even look like. So I'm definitely down to hear all types of ideas.
Right. This is all new to us, so we're just trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to get 72 mentees in a 30-minute time slot? It's going to have to be, with featuring 2 of them as the scholarship essay winners. But we want to give everybody their time. So I'm thinking a slideshow, maybe a video. I know we usually promote the trip to Africa, but we want to change it up a little bit this year. We don't have the scholarship dinner like we normally have. And so, but we definitely want to feature you guys. So me and Bull will work on that, and then we'll talk a little bit more about that next time we meet. But start thinking of how you want to be featured in the summit.
And
I have an idea.
I was looking forward to that chicken, man.
The
I have
magnanimous.
I have an idea I'll throw out that just came to my head. I wonder if we could do some sort of a shout out thing where, like through video, where we submit a video of us just saying like, "Hi, my name is Aman. I go to XYZ school. I study this, and I'd like to shout out my mom because this or that." So like maybe I don't know, because I feel like that'll keep it kind of fun and like light, like kind of lighthearted. Maybe not so boring,
Mhm.
but also I think it'll hopefully encourage everyone to submit a video because I think most of us here are wanting to give appreciation to those that deserve it. So maybe that's the way to do it. I don't know, but 30 minutes, that's tough. That's good luck
Yeah.
with figuring that out.
Yeah, we just have to tell brothers to keep it short. That'd be the only problem with that one.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, but I like the idea. We want to, these sponsors, these people that donate money, they want to see you guys. They want to, I mean, that's all they see is names. They don't actually get to see what you guys are all about and see how passionate you guys are. And so,
I had a scholarship award. It was for the National Society of Black Engineers back in 2018 in like Detroit or something, and it was a big conference, probably like 10,000 people there, and they had this one scholarship award where 100 people won, and I was one of them, so I got to see how they did it. And what they had us do was, this is obviously pre-COVID, is kind of what I mentioned, but in person. And everybody went up. We had a rehearsal and everything and practiced it and like how to go up on the stage and like lined up and everything. And we all were instructed, like, you can go up to the mic, you get to say your name and your school and like one comment, and you had to keep it to like 7 seconds or 8 seconds. And it was actually really cool. And like they had 2 microphones set up, and it was like, like a perfect kind of orderly transition. And it was cool. It was like, and it was everybody's different because everybody said different things. So some people were yelling stuff into the crowd, some people were shouting different things out, and the audience was like loving it and everything. So I think that's why I came up with that idea. I just figured I'd share that.
okay.
But, yeah.
Just we'd have to somehow put the video together, but I know somebody really good at that. So
yeah,
that's a good idea. Anybody else have anything to add?
I can help on the video side, if you do end up needing some, because that's what I do. So
okay, well, I'm gonna use you then.
yeah, let me know, please.
Oh, Tim, you want to talk about the basketball league? I think we're gonna get that kicked off tomorrow, right? Oh, he must have walked away from his computer. But anyway, we have a fantasy basketball league, and we need one more person to complete our 12 team league. So hit Tim up on the chat, or hit him up on the GroupMe chat, so we can get our draft tomorrow going, because they won't let us draft if we don't have a full league. So I know it's a lot to keep up with. There's games every night, but we just need one more person. Another thing I'm working on is, I know a couple of brothers in here asked for mental health counseling. One of our own, I think she does promotions. She's actually licensed. She does promotions for men. She's actually a licensed counselor, a mental health counselor. So I'm going to have her come in. And for those of you that actually mentioned that you would like to have some counseling, I'm going to refer your name to her and then connect you guys individually. So if you're one of those students that hadn't told me yet that you would like to have some counseling, make sure you hit me up. And obviously you don't have to do it here. Just send me an email saying you want to get on that list, and I'll let that person know, and I'll give her your information, and she'll contact you directly. All right. Anything else? All right, guys. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for the day, man. It was very helpful.
Oh yeah, Jamie's great, man. So stay alive on the chats. Keep sharing information, and we all need to hear from each other. And I appreciate all you guys. And we'll check back in on the 6th. I'll be in touch, Malcolm. We'll try to get that promo together. And then again, just keep thinking about how you guys want to be featured. I'll send these scholarship questions out today. So check your emails.
All right, cool. Thanks, Brett.
All right, brothers. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you in a few.
So y'all have a good one.
All right, y'all. Thank you.